Well, welcome to another super helpful repair video from the Goat Shed located in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia. Today we're working on Gottlieb's Pioneer from 1976. That's the two-player version of the Spirit of 76, which was the four-player version, of course. Now, we're somewhat come to a bit of a stalemate with this machine at the moment, but we'll talk to you about that in just a moment. So today is Tuesday, the 26th of July. It's 12 degrees Celsius outside, which is about 53.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Quite a cool and miserable day. So here we are with this game, and one of the things that we have to do on it as of yet is you'll notice that the pop bumper caps don't have any artwork on them. Well, the owner purchased some stickers that were available when Pinball Rescue was still going in Australia, and he wishes to have those fitted. So we've cleaned the old ones and painted them, and we're going to get those stickers when he drops them into us. The other problem we have at the moment is we have the pop bumper mechanisms right out of the game. The coils are just hanging there as we're waiting on some parts along with a flipper kit. So hopefully those parts will be here next week. But in the meantime, that didn't stop us from being able to test and troubleshoot the machine, with a few exceptions, and Spanky up there has been overseeing the problems. Now, when we reassembled this machine, we did discover a couple of things. But firstly, as most people know, when we do a machine, we pull it apart. We don't even turn it on. Now, our philosophy is that we go through all the mechanisms firstly, and then reassemble everything, and then we put it all back together and troubleshoot. Obviously, you can't get everything right the first time, and sometimes things go wrong. So we found a few different things wrong with this game. So the purpose of this is as follows. We do the score rails and the backbox mech first. So here we are at the backbox, but we can't help ourselves. Just yesterday we received our new Goat Shed tin plate labels, signs, whatever you like to call them. Now we only got 100 of these to see how they go. We've offered them for sale. Unfortunately, we can only sell them in Australia at the moment, and that prohibits us from our overseas friends. But yeah, when we come over in October, we're coming over to the Chicago Pinball Expo. We'll have some with us, not a lot because they're heavy and obviously constraints on aircraft, etc., etc. So there you go. So here in the back box, the player unit's been pulled apart and disassembled. You can see the rivets there, all nice and shiny. All the scoring relays and the F relay, which is one of those AS relays for the 0 to 9 unit there, that's all been pulled apart and overhauled. We've done all the score rails. They've all been pulled right apart, cleaned, new coil sleeves reassembled, switches adjusted. And the half moon credit unit was pulled apart and serviced. And besides the flipper kit and pop bumper kits, we're also waiting on some rubbers to come in as well. So up to our troubleshooting. What did we do? What went wrong with this machine? How did we fix it? Those are the questions that we'll answer for you. And I think this is the great part about newcomers to this hobby. You'll often get problems like we've encountered here, and we did a few man-made problems in this game as well to actually illustrate some of those things. Now, a lot of questions are asked about the state of the game. Now here's this game. As you can see there, the tilt light is on and game over. So that obviously occurs. We've just powered this machine up, or powered it on. Now we can't do an awful lot with this because we've got bits hanging off underneath it, but we'll now go through the problems that we actually encountered along with our troubleshooting. Now, one of the things that you've got to check when you turn a machine on, if it doesn't go, is the slam switches. Now, they often can be an issue, and actually while we had the motorboard out on this particular game, we noticed that this slam switch down here was broken. So it's supposed to go over the hole and have that weight on it. So we don't have anything like that to fix it with. So we've just simply joined the switch together. In other words, we've shorted that switch out. You've just got to do what you've got to do now. Just a reminder for anyone new to this hobby and anyone maybe even experienced. Be careful when you're working on these games. There is voltage, high voltage, present inside these machines. So be very, very careful. The other thing we noticed, like all these games, someone's did a modification to start it. I mean, oh God, why do they do this? But they do. So here's this modification they've done on this machine. They've fitted a micro switch which gets triggered by pushing down on the coin return. I suppose nothing wrong with that, but totally unnecessary really. Other than that, that was the only really hack on the front door. So that's a good sign. Now the next problem we encountered, once we got the slam switches fixed up, the machine still wouldn't start a game. Now why was that? Let's show you. So what we discovered when powering the machine on, I'm pointing to the U relay or first ball relay. Now when you power the machine on, that relay is supposed to pull in along with the one here, which is the Q or game over relay. Because the U relay wouldn't pull in, it couldn't start the AX relay, which commences the reset sequence. So if you observe when we power on the game, you'll see those relays pull in, we'll power off the game, and they pull out. Note that? There you go. Now because the U relay wasn't pulling in, that was our problem. And what the problem actually was that the U relay ended up being open circuit or open loop. The wire had broken off inside the wrapper. But on further investigation, that U relay is supposed to be an A9740 coil. They measure out about 21 ohms, 22 ohms, something like that. In it was an A9735 coil, which, you know, they only measure out about 14.5, 15 ohms. So clearly it was the incorrect coil and it had gotten, you know, really, really hot. Once we replaced that, the game would then start. Now, once we start a game, we start operating everything to make sure everything works okay. So, one thing we found was that this particular switch here wouldn't score reliably. Okay, what it turned out to be, if you look very closely, it had a loose contact pad, so we've actually soldered that back up. Now it works quite reliably. Now, we found that because we cleaned each of these switches with the Dremel. You can see they all look nice and shiny, and that one started to spin, so that needed attention. It's important that you go over everything to make sure it all works. Now, the next problem we found was we were checking to see if all the features would work. And here we have the hole where we can get a double bonus, special for a replay or an extra ball. Now what our problem here was that the special light wasn't coming on. And we also found another problem, that the hole kicker wouldn't kick the ball out. So two separate problems associated with the one mechanism on the machine. What were the problems? So, looking at the schematic, and we can see the special and extra ball light. There, special and extra ball below it. They have to make a circuit from this side to there. Now, what the problem was that you can see here the extra ball and the special light share a similar switch on 6B. Now that switch is on the sequence completed side of the drop targets. There's another switch 3E and 4E on the score motor. Now E, remember, that's the high stack. And what our problem really was, oh, I'm sorry, there's the J relay here with a make break switch on it. So what our actual problem was on the black, yellow and maroon wire on the special light. 6B was touching, but it really wasn't touching good enough, and we just re-cleaned and readjusted that switch. Now, our next problem was the hole kicker. So on the hole kicker, here we have the hole kicker located here, just in the bottom left of your screen. There's a green and red wire that goes to the G relay, and then it comes out the other side to a blue and red wire which goes to a normally closed switch on the E relay. So after inspecting both those switches on the G and E relay and following the circuit, checking the motor 4C switch, everything looked in order. What else could it be? The coil was checked and that was fine. So what happens between here, or the coil, and the first switch? Well, it's something that the schematics never show you. It's a Jones plug. So we found the Jones plug concerned, removed it, rejacked it, and away it went. So it was just, the Jones plugs had all been cleaned, but just needed rejacking. These things happen once again. So you've just got to be always on the lookout for that sort of thing. So now we've got a happy hole kicker. It's paying specials and extra ball and bonuses. So that was all good. So the next problem we encountered was the outhole wasn't kicking the ball into the trough reliably or occasionally. So first place we went was the trough switch, which of course is important or has to be closed to make that operate. But what we actually found was that it wasn't really quite, it was very spongy. In other words, when the ball rested on there and it came out, it was slow in going back, so it needed a bit more stroke on the upward part of the trough switch. It had been bent rather badly, and that seemed to fix the problem largely, but then we still had some problems. Now, a very, very, very common problem with a machine that has bonus unit on it is the switch on the bonus unit rarely closes, or not rarely closes, doesn't close efficiently. Now here's the O relay here, and I know it's a bit hard to read, but there's a switch on the Q relay that's normally closed, one on the AX relay, one on the J relay, and then here we have this 0 position switch. Now I'm going to show you this switch in a moment on the machine, but as you can see, it is a make break switch, and when the bonus unit is at home, if that switch isn't closed, it won't go through to give power to the O relay to pull in properly. So that's something to be aware of and to watch out for. As I said, it's Quite a common problem, indeed. Okay, now let's have a little look at that switch. Now on this game it's a little bit hard to see, but we'll endeavour to get in there and show you. So here's the bonus unit here. Now that bonus unit has been manually operated, and we want this peg to come back here and put pressure on those switches and close those switches efficiently. Now what we found on this game was that this is the switch concerned here, that top switch. Once you reset your bonus unit by counting down, now it's a bit hard here, I might just count the bonus unit back. So we've counted that bonus unit back to 0, and that top switch is now closed reliably. Now in this case what the problem was, if we had have adjusted the short blade on that switch as it was, it would have been touching almost all the time. What the problem here was that the bottom switch needed to be brought closer to the peg. Now that's the silver bit of the peg right there. I'm going to try and point to it. So that peg there with the insulation on it. So that switch there had to be brought closer to the peg by bending it a little bit. Now that's the long blade, you'll note. You never adjust the long blade of a switch, but in some cases it becomes absolutely necessary. Now we do all our videos here without any editing. We sort of do it live. Sometimes we'll make a mistake, which you've got to forgive us for, and if we do, we'll try and pick that up and remind you of it later on. So what you're seeing here is what we find as we go on these machines. Now as I mentioned, I'm reluctant to turn this on at the moment because we're waiting on some bits and pieces that need to come in. We've gone through all of the bottom panel, the bottom board, the motor board, cleaned it all up, done the score motor, checked and cleaned all the switches. So that's where we're up to on this game. Oh, there you go. See the that wire there? That's off the W relay. That was just hanging there. Someone had taken the coil out. The W relays are often a 9740 to use somewhere else in the game, and they just left it hanging. So we just had a burned out coil we put in there, and we were able to put a pin back in, so we could put the pin back in and sit it in the frame. Just don't like things being sloppy like that. Someone's had a lot of fun with this game. We had to put cable ties around the loom in a lot of places. Now they're not ideal, but look, that's all we've got, and you know, we're happy with that. We've got one or two more spots where we've got to fix that up yet. So it's coming along. We'll get there. So this machine will be live for another day or two. No, hopefully years to come. It'll go, this machine. So this is typical of this era game. If you look very closely just to the right of the transformer, you'll see the light of day. Yeah, the base is coming out of it, so that'll have to be repaired. Typical game of this era. Chipboard or particle board was used in the back panel there. The owner is going to do something about that. He's going to repair it, even replace it. And I think he's eventually going to repaint the cabinet and stencil it. So that'll come up very nice. He's had this machine a number of years, just sitting idly in his shed. Let's have a look. Yeah, a repaint job sure would be nice. Yes, it's got a bit of patina, I know, there with that big gouge through the second star on the left. Up in the light box area. Once again, you know, just needs doing. He's got a new sticker for the apron, so he'll put that on. That's all painted. He bought that before Pinball Rescue closed down. So all in all, this will be a very nice game, and another one resurrected. And we're going to show you a bit more about the game shortly.